As our teacher scrolled through her phone during lunch, she suddenly froze and shouted, "Who went through my desk drawer?" "We did," Cody announced while still recording. That's the moment Mrs. Johnson's expression shifted from confused to completely horrified. Her phone clattered to the floor as she grabbed the back of her chair until her fingers went rigid. We did. The words came out like she couldn't breathe. Her voice cracked like something inside her had shattered. She began stumbling between desks, repeating no, while her whole body started trembling. Our entire class kept filming because this reaction was exactly the content we needed. Cody had started the TikTok challenge during her bathroom break and live-streamed the whole thing, convinced our teacher wouldn't notice some missing Altoids. They looked like tiny white tablets with a weird coating, but we assumed they were those organic mints she always ate after coffee. What did you take? Her voice had escalated to almost a shriek, searching every phone screen like she could somehow delete what we'd already posted. Tell me you only pretended to swallow them. Tell me this was just for the video. But everyone knew you had to actually do it for the challenge to count. Cody finally lowered his phone, his swagger completely gone. We streamed it live after we found them in your drawer. We figured you wouldn't care, since you're always telling us to help ourselves to supplies. Mrs. Johnson's knees buckled and she had to catch herself on a desk, her complexion shifting from flushed to almost gray within moments. How many students? How many swallowed them? Her fingers fumbled trying to dial her phone, missing numbers repeatedly. Maybe 12 people raised their hands hesitantly, including me. They were pretty gross, honestly. She managed to connect the call and suddenly our vice principal, Mr. Wright, appeared in the doorway. He noticed Mrs. Johnson shaking immediately the second she leaned in to whisper to him. I'd never witnessed such an instant transformation. Mr. Wright's face contorted. His jaw went slack, and he physically stumbled backward like she'd punched him. You kept those at school? Mr. Wright's voice boomed across the classroom in an unlocked drawer. Both adults engaged in this frantic hushed discussion while everyone tried to piece together what we'd ingested. A few students had already started DMing. Their older siblings panicked. We should call poison control immediately, Mr. Wright insisted, rushing toward the door. But Mrs. Johnson caught his sleeve. Hold on, maybe we're overreacting. Maybe the dose wasn't dangerous. But Mr. Wright jerked away from her grip. Have you lost your mind? We're getting medical help. And you'll be explaining this to the superintendent. He rushed out as Mrs. Johnson remained frozen, looking ready to collapse. The live stream comments started flooding with warnings. Did we swallow something toxic? Are we actually going to get sick? Several students began hyperventilating, and suddenly 3/4 of the room descended into chaos without warning. The door slammed open, and along with our nurse came an entire EMT crew carrying medical bags. They immediately began checking everyone's pulse rates, questioning us about symptoms like dizziness or blurred vision. Throughout it all, Mrs. Johnson pressed herself against the wall like she wanted to disappear. Our principal burst through the door next, his face purple with rage. He marched directly to Mrs. Johnson, and despite attempting to speak quietly, his words echoed everywhere. They ingested what the EMT started speaking urgently into their radios, requesting additional units. Parents began flooding in, shouting about lawsuits and demanding information. Additional families swarmed in, while EMTs kept monitoring everyone. The corridor transformed into mayhem, with frantic adults yelling over each other. The principal raised his voice for silence. Listen, everybody. Please stop panicking. Nobody's going to have any serious effects. The parents erupted, prepared to destroy him. What the hell did my son consume? A mother screamed, lunging toward his face. Please, he'll be completely fine. The medication won't affect him. The crowd froze in confusion. Excuse me, the mother asked. They were antidepressants, but they expired 3 years ago. All noise ceased immediately. You're saying what now? Ancient Prozac. Completely inactive by now, like eating chalk. The room held its breath in disbelief before erupting into hysterical laughter, and 2 days later, I woke up and realized they had lied. Because my stomach felt like it was ready to jump out of my body. I immediately told my parents and they rushed me to the ER. Turns out those pills weren't antidepressants. And after what the doctors told me, I was about to be the most popular kid in school. The ER waiting room had mostly emptied out when Dr. Taylor finally waved us into one of those small rooms, with the bright lights and medical posters on the walls. He shut the door real careful and pulled up a rolling stool. While my parents sat in the plastic chairs next to my bed, the blood work came back and showed something way different from what they told everyone at the school. These weren't old antidepressants at all. They were abortion pills called misoprostol. My mom's hand grabbed mine so hard it hurt, and my dad's whole face turned this dark red color, like when he watches the news. Dr. Taylor kept talking about how that's why my stomach hurt so bad, and why I was bleeding. The medicine was made to cause contractions in the uterus, which explained everything. My phone was already buzzing in my pocket, and I pulled it out to text the group chat we'd made for everyone who took the pills. I typed asking if anyone else had stomach problems, and within maybe 2 minutes, 3 different girls wrote back saying they had the worst cramps ever. Sarah said she thought she was dying last night, and Ariane had gone to urgent care that morning. The boys in the chat weren't saying much, except that their stomachs felt a little weird, but nothing major. Dr. Taylor wrote down everything in my chart, and said we'd need to monitor things for a few more days, but I should be okay. He gave my parents some papers about the medication, and what to watch for the drive home was completely silent. Except for my dad muttering about lawsuits every few minutes. That night I couldn't sleep because my phone kept going off with messages from kids at the school asking what happened and if the rumors were true. The next morning at the school was completely insane. Walking through the front doors felt like being in a movie where everyone stops and stares at you. Kids were whispering in groups by their lockers, and every single person looked at me. When I walked past some freshmen I didn't even know, came up and asked if it was true about the pills. By the time I got to my locker, there were already 5 people waiting there, wanting to know what the doctor said. I kept my mouth shut and just said I couldn't talk about it yet, which made everyone even more curious. During second period I had to walk past Mrs. Johnson's classroom to get to the bathroom, and noticed it was completely dark inside with the door locked. The substitute in the room next door saw me looking and mentioned Mrs. Johnson was on indefinite leave, but wouldn't say why. Her desk was still visible through the little window in the door, and all her stuff was gone, including the pictures of her kids she always kept by her computer. The hallway felt weird without her standing there between classes, like she always did at lunch. The cafeteria basically turned into a mob scene around my table. Everyone wanted to know what really happened and what the doctors told me. Kids I'd never talked to before were suddenly acting like we were best friends. This girl from the yearbook committee sat right next to me and started asking all these questions about symptoms and medical stuff. The attention felt crazy and kind of good, but also really overwhelming because I didn't know what I was allowed to say. People kept showing me their phones with screenshots from Cody's deleted video and asking if the pills looked like what we took. Alyssa pushed through the crowd and sat down next to me with her lunch tray. She leaned in close and said we needed to be careful about what we said out loud. The school could get in massive legal trouble, and we might end up in the middle of it all. She showed me her phone where her mom had texted her like 20 times, telling her not to post anything online or talk to anyone about what happened. Her dad was a paralegal and he told them this could turn into a huge lawsuit situation after school. I was walking to the bus when Jacob from the newspaper came running up behind me. He had his recorder app open on his phone and asked if I'd do an interview about what really went down. This could be the biggest story the school paper ever published, and he needed someone who was actually there to tell the truth. I told him I had to think about it, and he gave me his number, saying to text him if I changed my mind. He mentioned he'd already tried to reach out to Cody, but hadn't heard back that evening. My parents were in the kitchen when the email notification popped up on my dad's phone. It was from the school district's main office, and the subject line said, "Important communication regarding recent incident." They called me over to read it with them, and the whole thing was basically telling us not to talk about what happened on social media or with any reporters. The email tried to sound nice, but you could tell they were threatening us about spreading what they called misinformation. My dad got even madder and started typing a response, but my mom made him delete it and said we should talk to a lawyer first. I went up to my room and checked Cody's TikTok account to see if the original video was still there. He deleted it completely, but screenshots were everywhere. On Instagram and Twitter people had saved the whole live stream, and it was spreading to other schools. Now Cody hadn't been at the school today, and when I checked his other social media, he hadn't posted anything since that day. In class someone said they saw him at the grocery store with his mom, and he looked really upset and wouldn't talk to anyone. The whole thing was getting bigger than any of us expected. The next morning, my phone basically exploded with Instagram notifications. Before my alarm even went off, I had like 300 messages from kids at other schools asking about what everyone was calling the abortion pill challenge. Screenshots of Cody's deleted video were everywhere, with captions about how our school was going viral for the worst possible reason. My follower account had jumped from maybe 200 to over 1,000 overnight, and people were tagging me in stories asking if I was okay. I scrolled through message after message from strangers, wanting to know if we really took abortion pills and what happened after at the school. The hallways felt different with everyone staring and whispering. As I walked past between second and third period, I ducked into the bathroom to avoid the crowds and heard 2 teachers talking by the sinks. They were saying something about Mrs. Johnson volunteering at some women's clinic on weekends, and one of them mentioned donated supplies, but they stopped talking the second they saw me in the mirror. I pretended to wash my hands while they left quickly without anything else. During lunch, Alyssa pulled me aside to her locker and showed me something on her laptop that made my stomach drop. She'd found a cached version of Cody's original video on some random website and figured out how to freeze it. At the exact moment he picked up the pill bottle, you could see part of the label through his fingers, and it definitely didn't say Prozac or anything close to that. The letters were blurry, but you could make out miso at the beginning of the word. I took a screenshot with my phone and sent it to Dr. Taylor's email that the hospital had given us. Within maybe an hour he called my cell during study hall and confirmed the packaging matched misoprostol exactly. He said he could write up an official medical statement for my family if we needed it for any legal stuff, which made everything feel way more serious. That afternoon, Jacob texted me about running a story in the school paper, but said he needed more sources than just me to make it legitimate. He asked if I could connect him with other students who got sick, so he could verify everything properly. I reached out to the group chat and 2 girls said they'd talk to him, but only if they could stay anonymous because their parents were already freaking out. Their parents found out the next day, and one mom showed up at the school during 4th period, screaming at the secretary about a cover-up. She demanded to see the principal right then, and kept yelling about how the school lied to everyone. You could hear her voice all the way down the hall. And teachers started closing their classroom doors during 5th period. The loudspeaker crackled on, and we all got called to an emergency assembly in the gym. Immediately the principal stood at the microphone, looking tired, and announced they were launching a thorough investigation into the incident. He kept insisting no students were seriously harmed and asked everyone to avoid speculation on social media. The whole time he talked, you could hear parents arguing with security guards at the gym doors, trying to get inside after the assembly ended. Mr. Wright grabbed my arm as I was leaving and pulled me into an empty classroom. He said if I kept talking about this, there could be consequences for my academic future and maybe my college recommendations. His face was all red and sweaty, and he kept pointing his finger at me while he talked. The threat wasn't even disguised, and instead of scaring me, it just made me mad because we were the ones who got hurt. That afternoon Alyssa came over to my house, and we went through the cached video more carefully on her laptop. We spotted something nobody had noticed before. When we zoomed in on Mrs. Johnson's desk drawer, there was a label maker strip that said personal items. Right on the front of the drawer where Cody found the pills. She definitely knew those weren't school supplies if she labeled them as personal stuff. My parents were furious when I told them about Mr. Wright, threatening me, and called a lawyer. That same night, the lawyer sent an email to the school district within hours, requesting all documentation about the incident, including emails and security footage. The district responded the next morning with a letter, putting everyone involved on notice to preserve all records for potential legal proceedings. 3 days passed with everyone walking on eggshells around school. When Jacob's phone buzzed during lunch with an anonymous attachment that made his eyes go wide, he slid his phone across the cafeteria table, showing me a screenshot of an email sent to all staff the morning everything went down, clearly stating teachers should tell parents and media the pills were expired. Antidepressants if anyone asked questions. The timestamp showed this went out at 8 a.m., which was less than an hour after we'd swallowed those pills, and way before any of us went to the hospital. Jacob started taking screenshots of everything, while I felt my stomach twist, knowing they'd planned the lie from the very beginning. That afternoon I created a private group chat with just the 12 of us who'd taken the pills, figuring we needed to share what was happening to our bodies without the whole school watching. Within minutes, everyone started typing about their symptoms, and patterns began emerging that made everything click into place. The 3 boys in our group said they just had some stomach pain for a day or two, nothing major, while every single girl described the same awful cramps I was dealing with. Sarah typed that she'd been bleeding for 4 days straight. Emily said she couldn't even stand up straight yesterday, and Madison had missed 2 days of school already. One of the girls mentioned her older sister was studying nursing at the state college and had looked up misoprostol. When she heard what happened, her sister explained that the medicine affects people with uteruses completely different from people without them, because it causes the uterus to contract, which explained why only the girls were basically doubled over in pain, while the boys felt mostly fine. The group chat exploded with messages as everyone realized the school had to know this would affect us differently, but never said anything about it. That evening Cody finally posted a video on his main account after staying silent for days, his face looking tired as he stared at the camera, saying he never meant for anyone to get hurt. He kept repeating that he thought they were just mints or vitamins, that he was just trying to make content like everyone else does, that nobody could have known what would happen. The comment section turned into a war zone within minutes, with people calling him every name imaginable, saying he was trying to save his reputation, accusing him of knowing exactly what he was doing. Someone posted a screenshot showing Cody had looked through multiple drawers before finding those pills, proving he was specifically searching for something interesting to film within 2 hours. The video disappeared from his profile like it never existed, but screenshots were already spreading everywhere. The next morning during biology class, a wave of cramps hit me so hard I had to grab my desk to keep from falling out of my chair. My teacher noticed my face going pale and immediately wrote me a hall pass to the nurse, without me even asking. Requested Reds is on Spotify now. Check out link in the description or comments. I stumbled down the hallway holding my stomach, having to stop twice to lean against the wall when the pain got too intense. The nurse took one look at me and helped me onto the examination table, pulling out a clipboard to document everything while asking detailed questions about my symptoms. She mentioned I was the 7th student she'd seen that week with the exact same complaints, all girls who'd been in that classroom when everything happened. While she took my temperature and blood pressure, she kept writing notes, muttering about how this needed proper medical documentation for the investigation. That afternoon, a certified letter arrived at our house from Gwendolyn Tolbert at the district office, written in that fake, professional language that tries to sound friendly while threatening you. The letter talked about the importance of not spreading unverified claims on social media that could damage the school district's reputation and affect our educational community. My dad read it twice before crumbling it up and throwing it in the trash, calling it exactly what it was: an intimidation tactic to keep us quiet. He said they were scared of lawsuits and bad press, not worried about what happened to us kids who actually swallowed those pills. I decided that night to make my own video, not to attack anyone or make accusations, just to tell the truth about what my body was going through. Alyssa came over with her ring light and helped me set up in my bedroom, making sure I stuck to just the facts without saying anything that could get me in trouble. We recorded it 3 times until I got through everything without crying, explaining the timeline of when I took the pills, when I went to the hospital, what the doctor told me, and how I'd been feeling every day since. Alyssa helped me edit it down to just the important parts, making sure every single thing I said was completely accurate and couldn't be disputed. Meanwhile, Jacob had been doing his own investigation, comparing the official timeline the school released with the actual 911 calls and EMT dispatch records he got through a public records request. He texted me screenshots showing the EMTs were told about misoprostol at 9 a.m. according to the dispatch logs, but the school didn't tell parents until after 10 a.m. at the earliest. The administration knew exactly what we'd swallowed for over an hour before they started telling our families it was expired antidepressants, giving them plenty of time to coordinate their story. That evening I pulled up Mrs. Johnson's contact in my phone and typed out a message asking if she'd be willing to talk about what happened. Just between us, no recording or anything like that. The message showed as read within 5 minutes, but hours passed without any response, then days, and she never wrote back, which honestly made me feel bad for her. She was probably terrified of losing her teaching license, or getting sued, or maybe even going to jail. Sitting somewhere, knowing a bunch of kids got hurt because of pills in her desk. At lunch the next day, Cody appeared at my table when I was sitting alone, sliding into the seat across from me with his shoulders hunched forward like he was trying to make himself smaller. He started talking fast about how everyone was bored that morning, how people were complaining about having nothing to post, how he just wanted to make something interesting happen. His voice cracked when he admitted he knew it was wrong to go through her desk, but thought the worst that could happen was detention, or maybe suspension, never imagining anyone would actually get sick. He kept looking around nervously, like he expected someone to start filming him, his hands shaking as he picked at his lunch tray without eating anything. The bell rang and I left him sitting there alone, heading to my next class, where everyone was buzzing about Jacob's article that had just gone live on the school newspaper website. He titled it "What Really Happened. Students Speak Out About Pill Incident," and included screenshots of the dispatch logs showing the EMTs knew about misoprostol at 9 a.m. While our parents weren't told until after 10:30, Jacob had been careful not to directly accuse anyone of lying, just presenting the timeline and medical evidence alongside quotes from students who'd gotten sick, letting readers draw their own conclusions. By the time school ended, the article had been shared over 300 times on Facebook by angry parents demanding answers from the district. My phone started blowing up with texts from kids at other schools asking if the story was real, if we'd really been given abortion pills and lied to about it. That night, the school board held an emergency meeting behind closed doors, and the next morning we all got an automated call saying Mrs. Johnson had been placed on administrative leave pending investigation into policy violations. The message was super vague, never mentioning what kind of violations or what pills we'd actually taken, just saying the district was committed to student safety and would be reviewing all classroom procedures. When I got to the school, 3 news vans were already parked out front with reporters trying to interview anyone who would talk to them. My dad had warned me not to say anything to the media without our lawyer present, so I kept my head down and walked past them, even though they kept shouting questions about the pills and the cover-up inside. The hallways were chaos with kids filming everything on their phones, and teachers trying to maintain order while clearly having no idea what to say about the situation. During second period we could hear chanting from outside, and when I looked out the window, about 20 people were holding signs that said things like, "Protect our children and accountability now," while marching in circles on the sidewalk. The principal came on the intercom, telling us to ignore the disruption and focus on our studies, but nobody could concentrate with all the noise and commotion happening around us. By lunch the administration had blocked all the main entrances and made us use the back doors near the gym to avoid the protesters who had grown to almost 50 people. Alyssa found me in the cafeteria looking upset, explaining that her parents had seen the news coverage and told her she couldn't help with the investigation anymore because they didn't want her getting in trouble or becoming a target. She kept apologizing, saying she wanted to support me, but her mom was freaking out about potential lawsuits, and her dad thought the whole thing could affect her college applications if she got too involved. I told her I understood even though it hurt, because she'd been the only person really helping me document everything properly, and now I felt alone in trying to get the truth out. That afternoon, my mom drove me to my follow-up appointment with Dr. Taylor, who spent an hour going through all my symptoms and documenting everything in my medical chart with way more detail than before. He explained that I'd need blood work every month for the next 6 months to monitor my hormone levels and make sure there weren't any lasting effects from the misoprostol exposure. While typing up his notes, he mentioned that having all this medical documentation would be really important for any legal proceedings, making sure to print out copies for us to keep at home. On the drive back my mom's phone rang, and it was Jacob calling to tell us that Gwendolyn from the district office had sent a cease and desist letter to the school newspaper about his article. The letter claimed the article contained false and defamatory statements that could harm the district's reputation and demanded it be taken down immediately, or they'd pursue legal action. Jacob's advisor was already working with a lawyer from some journalism foundation, who said they'd fight it since everything in the article was factually accurate and properly sourced with public records. That evening someone in our class group chat posted a screenshot from a teacher Facebook group where they were discussing the clinic donation situation and how to handle questions from students. The messages showed that multiple teachers knew Mrs. Johnson kept medical supplies in her classroom that she got from the women's clinic where she volunteered on weekends. One teacher had even warned her months ago that keeping prescription medications at the school could get her in trouble. But Mrs. Johnson had insisted she was just trying to help students who couldn't afford healthcare. Jacob spent the next day trying to contact the clinic to verify if the pills came from there, calling and emailing but getting no response until finally someone called back saying they couldn't comment due to patient privacy laws. He was frustrated because this could have been the smoking gun proving where the pills came from. But he respected that they had legal obligations and couldn't just share information about donations or volunteers. Meanwhile, Cody had posted another video on TikTok taking what he called full responsibility for starting the challenge, talking about how he was just a dumb kid trying to make content and never meant for anyone to get hurt. The comments were totally split, with some people feeling bad for him since he couldn't have known what the pills were, while others said he was just trying to save face now that there might be legal consequences. He ended the video by saying he'd learned his lesson about going through people's stuff and would be more careful about what challenges he started in the future, which seemed pretty weak considering everything that had happened. The next afternoon I was eating lunch alone when a woman I didn't recognize sat down across from me in the cafeteria. She looked around nervously before sliding her phone across the table with a photo of her and Mrs. Johnson at some volunteer event. She explained quietly that Mrs. Johnson had been helping students who couldn't afford or access reproductive health care for years. The woman said Mrs. The Johnson kept those pills specifically for girls who came desperate to her and scared with nowhere else to turn. She begged me not to share this information because it would only make the legal situation worse for Mrs. The Johnson, who was already facing serious charges. I nodded and pushed the phone back while my brain tried to process that our teacher had basically been running an underground clinic from her classroom. Later that day, Jacob texted asking if I could meet him at the library to work on a follow-up article about the whole situation. We spent 3 hours going through healthcare statistics and looking up why someone might feel they had to help students outside official channels. Jacob kept finding stories about teenagers who couldn't get medical help because of parent consent laws or insurance problems. We decided to write the piece focusing on these bigger issues instead of just blaming Mrs. Johnson for what happened. Jacob's fingers flew across his laptop keyboard while I helped him fact-check everything and find reliable sources for our claims. 2 days later, the district sent out an emergency email announcing a school board meeting with public comment period scheduled for that Thursday evening. My parents and I talked about whether I should speak since I was one of the students who actually got sick from the pills. My mom thought it would be good for the board to hear directly from someone affected instead of just reading reports. My dad worried about me becoming a target but agreed the truth needed to come out about how the administration lied to everyone. I spent the next 2 nights writing and rewriting what I wanted to say at the meeting. Meanwhile, Dr. Taylor called to say he'd prepared a detailed medical statement confirming my symptoms matched misoprostol exposure exactly. He emailed us the document which listed all my symptoms, test results, and his professional opinion that the pills were definitely not antidepressants. My parents printed multiple copies and planned to bring them to the board meeting in case anyone tried to deny what really happened. Thursday evening arrived and the school auditorium was packed with angry parents, reporters, and district officials all talking over each other. Gwendolyn stood at the podium trying to get everyone to settle down while board members shuffled papers and avoided eye contact with the crowd. When the meeting finally started, Gwendolyn began her presentation about what she called a medication storage policy violation. Without ever naming what the pills actually were, parents started yelling from their seats, demanding she stop dancing around the truth and just say what their kids swallowed. Gwendolyn kept referring to the substances in question, an improper storage of personal items, while the crowd got angrier and louder. Suddenly a dad near the front stood up, waving a manila folder, and announced he'd had the remaining pills tested at an independent lab. He pulled out the report and read directly from it that the pills were confirmed to be misoprostol, not expired antidepressants like the school claimed. The entire auditorium erupted with parents screaming about lawsuits. While Gwendolyn tried unsuccessfully to regain control of the meeting, board members huddled together, whispering frantically as more parents demanded answers about the cover-up and who knew what when. Finally, they called for public comment, and my name was third on the list to speak. My legs shook as I walked to the microphone, but I forced myself to look directly at the board members. While I spoke, I explained how the cover-up and lies hurt way more than accidentally taking the wrong pills ever could have. I told them how being lied to by adults we're supposed to trust made all of us question everything they tell us now. I described my actual symptoms and how scary it was, not knowing what was happening to my body, while they insisted everything was fine. Several students in the audience started clapping when I talked about how we deserved honesty and transparency from our school leaders. After an hour of angry comments from parents and students, the board went into closed session to discuss their response. They came back and announced Mrs. Johnson would be placed on unpaid leave immediately, pending a full third-party investigation. They also promised new policies for medication storage and stricter rules about teachers keeping personal items in classrooms. The board chair tried to end the meeting, but parents kept shouting questions about accountability and whether anyone would face criminal charges. Within minutes of the meeting ending, local news crews were already broadcasting live from outside the school. The main reporter held up her phone, showing the police department's official statement, confirming the pills were misoprostol based on their investigation. The district spokesperson standing next to her looked defeated, as she admitted they could no longer deny the facts, but insisted student safety remained their top priority. The next morning Cody wasn't at the school, and word spread quickly that he'd been suspended for 3 days for endangering student safety. This seemed completely unfair, since the adults lying about everything caused way more harm than his dumb TikTok challenge ever did. I actually posted on Instagram, defending him and saying we should focus on the real problems, like adults covering up medical emergencies, instead of blaming a kid who thought he was eating mints. My phone buzzed later that night with a text from Alyssa saying she was really sorry, but her parents were making her stay out of everything because they were scared of getting sued or something. She wrote this long message about how our friendship meant more than any investigation, and she hoped I understood. I texted back that of course I got it and we were still good. The next morning, my mom drove me to my follow-up appointment with Dr. Taylor, who checked me over and ran some tests. He looked at my charts and told us the good news, that my symptoms were getting better and there shouldn't be any permanent damage. He said I should keep coming back for a few more weeks just to be safe, but basically I was lucky. A couple days later Jacob sent our group chat a picture of him holding this big trophy from the State Student Journalism Association for investigative reporting. He'd won first place for his article about what really happened with the pills. He kept saying in his acceptance speech how all of us who helped expose the truth deserved credit too. That same week a thick envelope arrived from the district's lawyers, offering my family a settlement if we signed papers agreeing never to talk about what happened. My dad read through all the legal stuff and said the money was decent, but we'd have to sign an NDA. My parents and I talked about it over dinner, and decided that being able to tell the truth was worth more than any check they could write. 3 weeks after everything started, I woke up one morning and realized my stomach felt totally normal. For the first time, walking through the hallways at the school felt different now, because people actually knew who I was. Kids would come up to me and say they respected that I stood up to the administration. Some girl from the grade below even asked for a selfie with me, which was weird but kind of cool. The principal announced during morning announcements that Mrs. Johnson had decided to resign to pursue other opportunities. Later I heard from one of the other teachers that she'd already moved to another state. Part of me felt bad for her, even though what she did was messed up. She probably thought she was helping people who couldn't get medicine any other way. The school sent out this big email about new safety policies they were putting in place. Every teacher had to go through training about storing medications properly. They couldn't keep any personal medicine in their classrooms anymore. They also set up this anonymous system where students could report safety concerns without getting in trouble. Walking past what used to be Mrs. Johnson's classroom one afternoon, I stopped and looked through the window at the new teacher. Setting up her desk, the whole room looked different, with new posters and different desk arrangements. Standing there I realized how much had changed in just a few weeks before all this happened. I was just another kid nobody really noticed. Now I knew I could speak up when something was wrong and actually make things change. Being popular wasn't about having the most followers or being invited to all the parties. It was about doing the right thing. Even when powerful adults wanted you to stay quiet, I found my voice during all this chaos and used it to help make our school safer. That felt way better than any amount of Instagram likes ever could. That's today's story done. I'm grateful you listened all the way through. It makes telling them so worth it. Hit subscribe and let's share the next one too.